What is up, everybody? I am your legendary commander, and welcome to Space Engineers. I'm going to lead off with this is not my design. This is actually a design, at least as far as I know, that was created by Splitsie, and I really liked it. I tried to run with it on my own vehicle, and I ran into some problems. So you might be wondering, what's the problem? Why can't you just copy it? It's pretty simple, and it's when Splitsie builds his, he builds with an advanced rotor. With a small grid, you can't do that. You have got to build with regular rotors. And the same problem occurs on large grid rotors as small grid rotors. So this translates either way. The main problem is the rotor is, well, too long. The regular rotor is slightly longer than an advanced rotor, which is slightly stubbier, which gives it a little more room, which allows you to do things such as slap a rotor on and then slap a head in and then still attach them despite the fact that they weren't attached in the first place. So there's really no universal fix for this, because you need two kinds of fixes. One, I needed a structure to attach and stay attached to the vehicle. So what I did is I backed the rotor or displacement as far back as it could go, giving enough room on the other side to attach a head. That was pretty simple for the base mount of the ramp. Then all you have to do is go into the rotor and attach it and it'll work. However, the solution does not work when you come to trying to build the center foldable portion of the ramp. That requires a piston because the way it's attached, you have rotors mounted on one side, and even if they back them off, you're going to drag the whole assembly with it. That becomes a problem. So I found a piston was ultimately the solution. So to get these two rotors mounted, you're going to need a piston, and you're going to place it directly next to where you're trying to place the rotors. Make sure your gate is folded down for this, it'll make it a lot easier. You're then going to go ahead and take that piston, mount a block on it. Make sure to weld your piston because you're going to be using it. You'll mount the block on it right on the head, then you'll mount another block directly behind where you're wanting to mount the rotors. You'll then mount one more in the space where the rotor would go, and then you'll extend your piston out. The distance on this doesn't matter, and don't worry about the clanging. You're then on that block that is clanging around going to place a rotor, and then you're going to place another rotor directly next to it, mounting it to the other rotor. Make sure to remove the heads on these rotors and then remount heads directly to the folding gate in the locations at the corners where you're trying to get this gate to fold. Now that you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take the piston and retract it. You'll see that the rotors should line up fairly decent with the heads that are mounted to the gate. Then you're going to go in and attach each one. Shouldn't really matter how you do it, and if one isn't wanting to attach, the other one will probably pull it more straight. So do one at a time, and you should be able to get both attached, no problem. So what I just showed you is mainly for the second side. The first side is slightly less complicated. All you're going to do is you're going to set up a piston like before. You're going to set up a head mounted directly to the gate portion that you've already got built, and then you're going to set up the whole rotor to be plunged into it. But you're only going to use one rotor because the other rotor will be attached directly, and you're going to need that head to just be pre-attached when you place the rotor, as you have nowhere to attach a rotor head since that portion of the ramp doesn't exist yet. You're then going to directly build off that rotor that you just placed with the new head that's just floating there. That will allow you to build all the way across, which then you can then do the side I just showed you. Now you might be wondering why I didn't show you how to build the whole thing, and that's because you should for the most part be able to translate this from Splitsie's video. And I don't want to steal his work, it's absolutely his. I really enjoy him as a YouTuber. I'd hate for him to be mad at me, honestly. I just ran into problems, and I wanted to show you how to overcome those problems for the small variant of the ramp. Everything else is pretty much identical to what you see in his video, and taking these few little steps really did help. Now, there were a few other issues I've had with this. One of the issues was the rotor was not stopping when it was supposed to. These small rotors seem to have a little bit of an issue. Some of them worked fine on this vehicle. Other ones would be about off by 4 degrees, and I would tell it to stop at 90 degrees, and it wouldn't stop there. And I actually stopped it at 89 degrees is where I wanted it. So I had to drop my rotor down to 85 degrees or sometimes 84. Kind of depends. The rotors are a little finicky and they don't want to stop where you tell them, so you have to adjust and compensate for that. And after that, they really didn't give me any problems about stopping where they didn't want to. The other problem was, well, I had this. This happened upon load. Anytime I would take the gate and close it before loading, the gate worked fine. The moment I loaded the game, though, well, it didn't seem to like it. And most of the time, it didn't explode. But hey, this is the worst case scenario, and I'm glad I caught it on camera. Sorta. So the problem turned out to be that the rotor upon load did not like blocks left, right, up, or below it. These blocks would essentially push the rotor in one direction and then force it to essentially snap because it didn't like it. Now, I found a few other solutions during load to kind of fix it, but eventually I came to I couldn't even load in the game without it exploding. So basically, this edge that I've got around it to kind of make a solid seal wasn't going to work. I had to strip that out. Now, it may work higher up, however, down by the rotor itself, it is definitely not a good idea. Make sure to not keep anything on the cardinal facings, and you shouldn't have this problem. So that is essentially it. Those were really the only two main problems. I did have some problems with the rotor not wanting to close all the way. One rotor was not strong enough. However, that was solved once I cut that other block out around the rotor. It turned fine. However, you can, if you're worried about power, your rotor's not strong enough, you can use the other rotor on the other side. You just got to make sure you measure everything out properly and doing the complete opposite job the other one is doing. The best way to do this is to leave that rotor off, let it free spin, find out where the rotor is sitting, and then adjust your settings accordingly, and then flick it down, flick it up, and see where the rotor is stopping. Once you find out everywhere it's stopping, you can then just go ahead, set the same speed, and they can operate together, doing the lifting job together. If you have a big gate and that's what you need out of a small grid. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. I may be bringing more space engineers to the channel. I don't know. It really kind of depends. This one is up in the air. I saw this and I wanted to show everybody, and I was really disappointed when I couldn't get it together at first, and eventually my brain thought its way through it. So now hopefully your brain doesn't have to do it, and you can just use my method to build a small grid version of Splitsie's setup. But that is going to be it, guys. Y'all take care, and I'll catch you next time.